Right. Oh, look at that. I thought I fixed that. Well, apparently I have not. How's everyone doing today? Hopefully well. Hopefully you're not printing anything right now. We'll just leave it at that. All right. So we got some good stuff to go over. Let's see. We'll give everybody just a little bit more time. And then we'll jump into it. I'll tell you all what I know as of now, and I will we'll dig into a little bit just what I know. We got some really spicy stuff. It's really good. I'm not going to do a full read of the blog post. If you're wondering, I'm sure that there's other content creators that have already covered that. If you guys are interested, I'm going to give you my takes on it. I have read the whole thing. I didn't find anything specifically interesting to learn from it. I mean, maybe just besides general terror and how printers are dealt with. But we'll get into it. Toady 2400, how are you doing? I'm doing well today. It's Friday. I have right now my lunch break. And then I got just 4 sweet hours until the weekend. So I'm pretty excited. Tomorrow should be a pretty fun stream as well. So yeah, I'm doing well. Yusuf, how are you doing? By this weekend, I should know about the new house, whether I can move out of the dungeon or not. So I'm pretty excited about that as well. Hopefully we're done with negotiations this weekend, and then it should be only like 5 more weeks until the Null Labs can move. Well, it probably will be a little bit longer than that because we got to get the new place ready. But progress is good. All right, let's jump into it. The very first thing we're going to jump off to is something brought to my attention by the community, but I have dug much deeper. All right. This was the article. Now, there is speculation whether this article was AI generated, and my conclusion is it probably was, or at least parts of it was AI generated. I don't know the writer, and maybe it's not, and they just sound like an AI. But it gave some pretty good starting points, except it kind of was a little far from the truth. Now, the thing is, it wasn't supposed to be out yet, but there was leaks, and so then there's a spider. There was leaks, and it was then released in full. And so instead of this October 6th full disclosure, there has now been a full disclosure, so now we can actually get into that. Now, it was saying an unauthenticated remote code execution flaw with a CVSS of 9.9. Now, if you know what a CVSS, a rating of 9.9 means, one of the things to achieve that means no interaction from the user. We're going to get into how this maybe came to be, but this is actually not true. The actual end score is probably more likely a 9.1, but there's some ambiguity into how much a user has to interact, because some people would say that hitting the power button to turn on your computer would be user interaction. I actually argued this because I said it's a very vague definition to go by, because if turning on the machine is required, pretty much all of them have some sort of human interaction required. But again, that being said, while there's ambiguity, we're going to get into how this happened. Now, as many of you probably know, you know what? This is a little off. I feel like this is a little off. You're not seeing the top of the website. One second. I got to fix that. Should be like that. There we go. Okay. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay. So digging a little deeper, it was leaked. And so the actual person that did it actually released a blog post on what it was, how it works, and whatnot. So you can go here. I'm going to give you guys this whole link for your viewing pleasure. Please enjoy that. On exactly how they did the attack. Now, the interesting thing is and what I got really interesting out of this was that while there's the information on the attack, and the attack is maybe not surprisingly related to printers, also maybe not. So one second. Maybe not surprising. It has to do with that you can just run Perl as a printer, and maybe not surprising, related to Fumatic Rip, which is a hilarious name for something. Did not know that existed, but it does. For your information, Fumatic Rip is part of your printing. If you've printed on Linux, you've used Fumatic Rip, which is fantastic. I don't know how that. But one of the things that they went into was how it originally got the 9.9, because a lot of people kind of threw a little bit of hate on this developer for basically what they considered clout chasing and FUD. Because again, it actually is about a 9.1. But the thing is, this developer didn't actually give it its rating. Red Hat engineers did. So this engineer finally got a hold of Red Hat engineers, and Red Hat engineers, one gave the rating and one reviewed it, gave it a 9.9. Okay, so the initial one wasn't from him; it was from Red Hat. So yes, he did tweet. We can see that. I have no idea. I don't do vulnerability research for work, and I have no real idea what the scores are assigned. So that was basically just a thread he made based off of his initial findings. So anyways, I'm not privy to the whole thing. But it was kind of spicy, his call out of the process. Basically, he doesn't do security things. And so before he tweeted, no one would take him seriously. He was getting a very hard time getting people to take this vulnerability seriously. And we'll get into why it's a serious vulnerability that maybe doesn't affect a ton of people. And so I think this actually opens up a really big issue that not a ton of us have talked about. And that is the fact that we have this same problem on GitHub. We have the same issue on just about anything. And there are these people that are either going after bug bounties or going after clout. I know when I was working heavier on the Kubernetes project, that there were definitely people in the Kubernetes, or there was definitely people that came to Kubernetes and would open up pull requests fixing a single word in documentation, a single grammatical error. Instead of like fixing whole documents or things like that, literally a single word to try to get multiple pull requests into the Kubernetes project. There's the same thing that happens with issues. There are people that open issues for a grammatical error in documentation, like a single grammatical error, and stuff like this, where they're just trying to get their number up as high as possible, their total number of contributions. You could call it clout chasing. There's other reasons you might want to do it other than just clout. And this is a big problem for everything, and maybe made worse by AI, because you now have AIs generating these things that sound real but aren't actually real problems. And so I think that's what happened here. This person had a real issue, but it felt like one of those other people because they had no background in security. They're just some random dude off the street. And I'm not saying this guy doesn't have any clout or anything. I don't know them. The security community doesn't know them. And that I know of. And this is a problem that AI has probably made worse. AI has probably made this worse for the entire internet. And it's something I don't know that any of us have a good way of combating. Not yet, at least. The only reason people do that is because interviewing resume filtering is all asking for GitHub work. Yeah, well, that's dumb. That's dumb. And to be honest, if I did ask for GitHub work and I saw this, if I saw this in your resume or in your GitHub work, that would be the hardest and fastest nope ever. Like, let me just be clear. If I did care and wanted to, and I do ask if people want to show off stuff, so that's fine. But if you show me an account that has opened up PRs to fix a single word, like, the interview doesn't progress, period. There is no, you could have interviewed super amazing and the interview doesn't progress right there. Just say it. Don't do that. It's probably an industry created monster. I mean, the same with security vulnerabilities, because there's bounties. And I don't think that bounties are bad per se, but there's actually financial gain to finding some of these things. And so if you can get an AI to just spit out a bunch of stuff and you just take the I'll throw crap at the wall until something sticks approach, you get this. I don't know if that's actually happening at this point, but it kind of felt like that's kind of what was happening here. And so, yes, he did take to that and to Twitter. And yeah. Now, I want to talk about the takeaway. We could cover all of this. I have read the whole thing. The takeaway is this. Don't use cups. Don't use cups, okay? If you don't use cups, you're fine. If you don't print from Linux, you're fine. There is actual requirements. This should not be a 9.9. It's fairly probably a 9.1 because it does require some interaction, which means I have to do something on the machine. And what I have to do is I have to print something. And they could make a printer that says print to PDF or print to drive, or they could, the other great thing is all these printers, if they're on your network, all of these printers actually declare themselves. So they could find what other printers were on the network and then just pretend to be those printers. So you would either have two of them, and I don't know how many times you guys have been in an office and you're like, I don't know which printer to print from, and I pick one and then I walk past the three printers. I mean, I have done this. So it is a vulnerability. Your IT needs to make sure that either you guys aren't using cups as Unix users, and it seems like there is a part 2 about Mac. So yeah, let's see. In part 2 of the series, we'll see how to use these new better cat modules, not yet illustrations, to attack Apple Mac OS. Anyhow. You have printed to a different city floor printer so many times. Right. Like, I don't know if anybody's worked in an office, and I know at home it would be a little suspicious if I had two of the same printer on there. But even if I saw two, printers are so bad, I'd be like, it registered itself twice. What a dented printer. And I would just pick one, honestly. Not now. Not after reading this. Trust me, if I see two printers, I'm like, I know what you've done there. So, but anyways, another interesting thing was basically this. By the way, certs Venice either has a backdoor or an inside leak, or has zero vetting on who they add to disclosures because there's been a leak of the exact markdown report I have only shared there, including the export. Now, I know as of 5 years ago, I was a part of this because of my work at SUSE. And I know everybody that I worked with there took this very, very seriously. Being a part of this disclosure. So this kind of makes me sad because basically what happened was they were doing a good faith to get the fixes out there before releasing the proof of concept and the full thing. And basically it was leaked. This is actually pretty sad. Now this is probably a pretty harsh take, and this guy seems pretty fed up with the whole process because he got gaslit at one point during it, and so it sounds like he's on the sore end of it. It's hard to vet people. It's hard to vet people. That's just the end of the story. Sadly, there are people that are going to try to be good actors or look like good actors to get in. So that's it by the end. Basically, a printer, if you guys don't know what this actually is, a printer can basically run anything that they want, including Perl and Bash and anything. So when a printer registers on Linux with cups, it can say, I want to run this Perl. And your computer will run it. And because of the vulnerabilities they found, you can register as any printer you would like. So that's the whole thing. If you use cups, stop using cups. I believe they're working on fixes. I don't think those fixes are out. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. Have you all wondered that doesn't even make sense what I was about to say. All right. Oh, one second. We're There has been, in the past year, an entire war on people working from home. The idea of people working without actually seeing their face except through a camera and twice a year. The idea of micromanagers not being able to look over your shoulder and see exactly which keys you're typing and when. The idea of your boss not being able to come to your desk and demand your face-to-face attention, they probably haven't even brushed their teeth recently, has just irked some upper management. The idea of them learning to manage in different ways and to change how they think and manage people, and the idea of coming up with innovative ways to ensure productivity and innovation and creativity, they just can't do it. They have to fall back on the old ways where these things were just happened on by the water cooler, and where these concepts are of empowering your employees to work and work hard and find employees that want to work and work hard and to drive real meaningful impact to your company have just been lost. So the work from home battles continue. Now, there's two interesting cases this week that came up. Amazon has notoriously put in a very stringent work from the office 5 days a week, effective January 1st. I think it's January 1st. Don't quote me on that. But now we're learning some inside tips and tricks on how people have avoided this. There are 3 main ones. The classic, badging in during lunch, grabbing a coffee or snack, and immediately leaving. This worked for a few weeks until they started to actually tracking time actually in the office. The next one was renaming the home Wi-Fi networks to the same as the networks in your office. Then when you logged in for the day, you'd be marked in office by the reporting software. Fantastic. Fantastic. This is Amazon. Under the table agreements, some people made deals where they'd leave their badges at the office and they'd have other people badge in and take and out for them. Risky, but knew someone who did this for months. These employees are going all out on it, but the war continues. Salesforce is closing its Oregon office and requiring that everybody there either take severance or relocate. So the battle continues. Battle continues. So, yep. This is actually one of my problems with the whole, like, the work from office from Amazon. To me, and when they talk about creativity and things like that, to me, you know, I have relatives. They don't tell me anything about Amazon not giving you any inside information because I don't get it, because I don't ask for it, because that would be super dangerous to their job. And I would never do that to family. So I would never let them tell me anything because I don't know, we're related. It would be easy to track down. But I know that they work in one of many buildings. And in that building, it's a massive building. They work in a very small group. The effect of being in the office or not is negligible because they don't see anybody else in the company in general. And that's one thing that I've always struggled with this. As with Salesforce, Hillsborough office, it had 150 people. What did them being in the office have to do with them working with the rest of the company? 150 people is not very much to these people. And the fact is, that's just, I don't know. It feels very old school thinking to me. Now, that being said, I know that there are things about working from home and junior engineers. You know, I don't have they take so much. Schools do such a bad job of preparing them for the real world. They take so much hand-holding, and I don't mean this in a bad way, that it's very easy to say they need to be in the office. But I'm not sure if that's true or we just haven't found a good way to mentor them remotely. That's all I'm going to say there. I'm not sure. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about security. There are a couple things that I noticed in security that we'll talk about really quickly. Nothing amazing, nothing super amazing. So we'll just talk about them really quickly. The CISA stated that hackers are targeting industrial systems using very unsophisticated methods. This is true, But it's also true of just about everyone else. Dumpster diving is still probably the most easiest and best way of getting somebody's password, looking at their desk. Like, unsophisticated methods are probably the primary way of doing it because they're so effective. Social engineering is easy, phishing is easy, and low risk. You could break into the physical security of some place and plant a device on their network. You could do that. But do you know what's easier? Is just sending 500 phishing emails from an account in China and getting one person to click on them. That's just easier. So I think this will probably always be true. Hackers and nefarious individuals are always going to take the most unsophisticated, the easiest, and the lowest risk option because that's safer for them. This was an interesting thing. Hackers plant false memories in, I hate the word memories because it doesn't really have memories like humans have memories, but whatever. In ChatGPT to steal user data in perpetuity. So basically it plants fake it's a way of command prompting. So this basically goes into hacking memories with prompt injection. I'm gonna link this to you guys because I found it an interesting read. And I think that you guys should read it. Basically, adding memory to an LLM is pretty neat. Memories mean that an LLM application or agent stores things it encounters along the way for future reference. So this has been, ChatGPT does this and has been doing this, where your previous conversation, if it has enough context left, it's going to leverage those in responding so that it can basically have more context on the whole discussion. And so they've gotten pretty good at storing, AI's model's context is only so big. And so they have to be somewhat selective. And this is the memories that they're talking about. So anyways, they go through this. Go for it. I think it's a pretty interesting technique. You might not want to do it in ChatGPT because you could get banned because they don't like you probing their model at all. Yeah, what's the worst? You get banned. Hope no one puts security keys and passwords in their prompts. Oh, for the love of all things good on this earth, do not do that. My goodness. You know that even with a paid account, they train on your data. You know that, right? That's in their terms of service. You have to pay for the $5 extra to not have it train on your data. And even then, I wouldn't trust it. So please, for the love of all things good, don't do that. Oh, you know what? I wanted to talk about one thing. I forgot to. Talk about it. And I just remembered. Okay, let's talk about this, and then I'm gonna circle back to the printer vulnerability. Can we call it printer bleed? Not printer bleed. What would be the right? We need to come up with a good name for it. It doesn't have a good name. And it needs a good printer one. Okay, so there's a critical vulnerability in MediaTek Wi-Fi chipsets commonly used in embedded platforms for Wi-Fi 6, and it's been discovered allowing attackers to launch remote code execution attacks without any user interactions. So this one is pretty scary. You should know about it. Yeah. Anyways, now what I wanted to point out was there was some discussion about the printer printer bleed, Printergate. Okay, we'll go with Printergate. There was, yeah. I like Printergate. We'll go with Printergate. There was discussion. Even now, this gets a 9.1. And a lot of people pointed out, and I was kind of upset with this. A lot of people pointed out that Spectre and Meltdown only got a 5 point or a 7.5. And the reason that Spectre and Meltdown got so much lower than this was because of how easy it is to exploit. Spectre and Meltdown were not easy. And they weren't even guaranteed because it had to do with branch prediction and tricking branch prediction. And it was hard to do. It also required physical access and things like this that this doesn't actually do. This doesn't require physical access. It requires just being on the same network. Not only that, it's like 3 lines of code. Not even joking. Well, 3 lines of code in Python. 20 lines in any other language. And so a lot of people are like, oh, Spectre and Meltdown. But let's talk about this. Why was Spectre and Meltdown a bigger deal? And the reason Spectre and Meltdown are bigger deals, and any of those, I mean, there have been other ones. AMD just recently had one. I forget what its name was. But, you know, the reason these were big deals were these were chip architectures that had a failure. And the problem is there's no way to change that once you've stamped the die. There's no way to fix it. I mean, the ways we fixed it was to handle it at the kernel level. Like, effectively, I mean, it slowed all the processors down because the CPU, the OS and kernel had to basically disable things and get around things, and it wasn't as efficient. So the reason it's more of a big deal here in Printergate, all they have to do is actually patch the problem. Now we'll get into why this problem is hard to patch, but all they have to do at a software level is to disable whatever it is. I forget the name of it. The rip. What is it called? Something rip. Let me just search for it. I forget what it's called. Rip. Well. Oh, FUMAC rip. Yeah. All you have to do is disable FUMAC rip. Basically, this will disable support for older printers because older printers require purling it out. And if they can't purl it out, older printers won't work. Now, I haven't had any confirmation that this is in newer printers, but basically disabling this there isn't a quick fix to Printergate because of this issue right here, where disabling this support would disable printers. Now, I personally say you take the responsible approach and you disable this and you make it something that can be enabled for people that want to, fly by the seat of their pants and, kind of clench every single time they print something. I think that's the easy fix out of this. Make it a plugin that you have to install. Like make this a plugin you have to install on the side. Like, you really have to want to make your system vulnerable to print from an older printer. But again, this comes back to your CPU, your processor. This wasn't easy to update in code. There wasn't a software patch to do it. You can't just update your system. The problem was the hardware was vulnerable to these attacks. And that's the big difference, because people were like, oh, this is blown out of proportion because Spectre and Meltdown was only a 7.5. And the fact is, Spectre and Meltdown was a much bigger problem. Also, Spectre and Meltdown was the first time we had really seen these hardware attacks, where we weren't attacking the software, but we were attacking the underlying layer. Not the first times, but one of the first time, I think they were the first time we had it on a CPU. Anyhow, that's my take on that. That's why it's different. And so people should stop being like, it doesn't deserve to be a 9.1. It does deserve to be a 9.1. Stop complaining. It seems worse than the log4j issue. I think the reason it's worse is that if you're on Ubuntu, it's enabled by default. A lot of popular distributions have it enabled by default. And so if this is and if anybody prints from Linux, they probably are using cups, not bowls. They should switch to bowls instead of cups. I mean, bowls are so much more useful. You can do so much more with them. You can even drink out of them. So really start using bowls. All right. Who is ready to get into some PHP? Not balls, bowls. They're the slightly shorter version of a cup, okay? Think of a cup squashed down. More stable. Spills less easily. All right. Well, yeah, let's talk about the forbidden language. All right. So we all know it. We all hate it. Oh, you thought it was my accent? No, I was saying bowls. I don't know. Maybe I say that weirdly. Do I say that weirdly? Bowls, like the saucer. It's a dish that you eat soup out of. It's a bowl. It's a bowl. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. Maybe I was trying to explain it. Not using the word bowl. Because maybe I say that word weirdly and it sounds like ball. All right, let's move on. The forbidden language. Let's talk about it. Because who hasn't wanted a little bit more drama? If it wasn't for the drama with Printergate and everything surrounding that, and the 22 days it took him to get people to take him serious. Yes, you heard me right. 22 days. After he had made the whole exploit, it took him 22 days for people to listen to him. If it wasn't for Printergate, we would still have more drama to cover. Now, this might be a little too complicated for the majority of you, so I'm going to actually draw it out for you, just to help some of our simple minds, because it actually took me a little while to figure out exactly what happened and when. So, very interestingly, let me make this easier for you guys to see. 1 second. All right. There are these two things. There's this thing called WordPress, which is mainly the reason PHP has survived. And there's this thing called WP Engine, which I am assuming is WordPress Engine. It's basically just hosted WordPress. Okay. They got into a fight. The first thing that happened was that they sent a WordPress engine. No. This is not the first thing. The first thing was that WordPress engine sends a cease and desist letter to Atomic over his comments. So basically they said, WordPress engine said, yo, stop talking crap about us. Okay. And so then WordPress was like, WordPress, and if you don't know, this guy, I have no idea how to pronounce his name, is kind of like one of the big people at WordPress. This guy said, well, WordPress is going to send you a cease and desist letter of their own to cease and desist over WordPress trademark infringement. Basically, they use the word WordPress all over in their website. So they sent, don't use the word WordPress. Now, I will tell you this. When this was happening with Rust, and I was a strong proponent not for Rust to chase people about the use of the word Rust, because it was going to cause trouble. And, you know, honestly, this is probably a childish move here, but this is the move that was taken. But boy, did it end here? No. No, it didn't end here. We had to ramp it up. We took it from some minor legal proceeding. I mean, cease and desist letters are like the bare entry to legal proceedings because it's your official statement that they need to stop. And if they don't, then you can file legal proceedings on after that. So it's kind of like, I'm not a lawyer and this isn't a device, but it's kind of like the intro level to it. But yeah, we decided to escalate. All of them did. So WP Engine then said, well, if you're going to do that, we're going to remove, WP Engine provides WordPress, and in WordPress, there's a feed. And so WP Engine decided to remove the feed from all of their WordPress. So they ripped out WordPress feed so that people couldn't see the guy who's, I can't pronounce his names, comments, because that came in the WordPress feed, about the WordPress engine. Now, this actually caused people's WordPress sites to go down, funny enough. And so WP Engine actually had failures across this because this actually caused it to stop working. Instead of taking it on the chin and WordPress just saying, okay, WordPress decided that, well, it was time for them to retaliate because that's how we work. So WordPress removed WP Engine's access to WordPress. And if you're thinking, oh, that's not a big deal, why would that matter? You know, WordPress is open source, whatever. It's not going to change anything. Well, it actually has massive implications for everybody that uses the WP Engine. So WP Engine is banned from WordPress.org. The big deal with this is that WordPress actually hosts the templates. Okay. WP Engine wants to control your WordPress experience. They'll need to run their own user login system, update servers, plugin directory, theme directory, pattern directory, block directory, transitions, photo directory, job board, meetups, conferences, bug tracker, forums, Slack, Ping-O-Matic. I don't know what Ping-O-Matic. I now need to know what Ping-O-Matic is. And Showcase. These servers can no longer access our servers for free. Their servers can no longer access their servers for free. Basically, bringing WP Engine's operations to a halt. Yeah, this is actually probably a pretty big deal. And I'm sure that there's going to be legal court filings because I'm sure that WP Engine is going to sue them over this. For sure. 100%. The reason WordPress sites don't get hacked. Did they say this tongue in cheek? I think that they said this tongue in cheek. As much anymore. Okay. As much anymore. We work with hosts to block vulnerabilities at the network layer. WP Engine will need to replicate that security research on their own. WordPress went full nuclear option here. Not only did they go legal action, like I said, they've sent cease and desist letters. That is generally a follow-up to or is the precedings to legal actions. They went full nuclear. It is a full-on brawl at this point. And you know what? I feel bad. I feel bad because there are people, the whole community is going to suffer from this. So these two people got too big for their britches, and I'm going to call both of them out, and hurt the entire community. Okay? WordPress. I get it. I get that you're upset. There were some other things WordPress did. They updated their I probably have to now legally say that I'm not affiliated with WordPress, and WordPress didn't ask me to say this, although this is actually all covered under fair use. WordPress, the entire community is worse off for this, I think. Now, I don't know a whole lot about WP Engine, and maybe it was a garbage service. I don't know. I have no understanding, and I use the word maybe because I don't know. And I would understand how, if I was the creator of WordPress and there was this garbage platform, I would hate for them to tarnish our name, because you'd think, oh, I went to WP Engine, it's the WordPress engine, and it sucks. Crap. WordPress sucks. WordPress does suck, but it doesn't matter. I could see how you get heated with this, but the problem is that you've hurt your entire community. You've hung your dirty laundry out for everybody to see. You didn't solve the big thing where you were tweeting at each other. You were tweeting crap at each other instead of trying to fix the problem. Pulling WP Engine from using your servers has just destroyed WP Engine's ability to operate and made the service for their customers even worse now. It's just not a good look on anybody. I know you're passionate at this time, but making this statement isn't good for your community. WP Engine is free to offer their hacked up, bastardized, of WordPress's GPL code to their customers, and they can experience WordPress as WordPress Engine envisions it, with them getting all of the profits and providing all of the services. Don't do this. It hurts your entire community. That's my final take. I think nobody comes out the winner in that. My dad always said, nobody wins in a boxing match. Like, nobody wins. Sure, there's somebody that gets hurt worse. There's somebody that gets hurt worse. But everybody comes out with a black eye. That's kind of the idea. And you can kind of avoid these things sometimes. All right. NIST has just saved your password dilemma. Actually, NIST is coming in and saving you from bad password mistakes. Now, for the longest of times, there was like a bare minimum set by NIST, and NIST would say basically you have to have a certain strength of password, but they wouldn't put restrictions on what you could do. So you could make further restrictions beyond what NIST. So let's say NIST says you have to have a password of 15 characters. Well, previously you could say, well, we're going to say you have to have a password with 20 or more characters. But this caused some maybe bad practices that NIST didn't actually appreciate. And it's coming to save you and your enterprise. So with the new rules laid down by NIST, which if you want to participate in the federal government of the United States, you have to actually follow these. Verifiers and CSPs shall not impose other composition rules for passwords. So they just said, flat out, laid down the law and said, nah, I'm not going to make you guys read this whole thing because it's pretty long. I'm not going to make you read the whole thing. I pulled out the very specific things just for you all because it's very long. I don't know exactly how long it is, but it is very long. Can I actually let me link this part right here? Let me link this part right here. That's what I did do. That's what I did. Never mind. Sorry. Anyways, no, I didn't. One second. Oh, I didn't. Sorry. 3 links is the charm. I'm gonna get banned, auto banned for spamming links. Okay. If he doesn't know how long it is, it's probably measured in metric. Touche. I don't know what you mean by metric. Is that like yeah, I don't know what metric is. Yeah, the only time I know what metric is when it's like a metric ton of like when you're exaggerating, when you're like, I'm gonna release a metric ton of whoop on your yeah, anyways. I'm not gonna finish that. But that's the only time I use the word metric. A metric ton of CVEs. Exactly. That's the only metric scale I understand. Yeah, a metric ton of CVEs. All right. So anyways, this actually eliminates a very common one that I think a lot of people suffer from, which is the every 60 days you have to change your password. That's not in their wording. So guess what? They even go further on after this one to say, verifier and CSPs shall not require users to change passwords periodically. However, verifiers shall force a change if there is an evidence of a compromise of the authenticator. Very, very good change. Why is this a good change? Because a lot of people will be like, well, it's better safe than sorry because like we don't know if it's been compromised. That's what a lot of people would use as an argument to say, well, we should still do this because we just don't know if your password has been compromised. Now, I would argue back that this means you don't have good enough metrics and you don't know how I normally log in and things like that, where you should have some evidence, some idea that I've been compromised. But beyond that statement, it causes users to do stupid things. Instead of using a password manager, I'm not sponsored by Bitwarden, but I'll say like Bitwarden or 1Password. Like those, I'm not sponsored by either of them, so don't shoot me. Users instead make passwords they can remember and then increment them by a 1. And the big problem here is if they changed it and they were vulnerable, it's very easy for a hacker to then guess the next iteration. So it actually ends up leaving you more vulnerable. So just don't do it. All right. So you all may say thank you to NIST. They have saved you from bad passwords. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, let's jump in. We're going to really quickly cover cloud information. There wasn't anything super exciting. It's just some cloud data. And so we're going to cover that, and hopefully it's good and you guys like it. Cloudflare's 12th generation servers are 145% more performant while being 63% more efficient. You could go into it. They have some metrics for you. They actually show you their servers, which is kind of cool. You know, I'm glad we knew these. We were all guessing that these were not fans. This was storage and these were fans. But they give you a nice little read down, which is kind of cool, and specifications. But as most clouds have worked, they've worked to provide cheaper, better machines. In general, which is pretty cool. Cloudflare's following along. Thank you so much for your follow. I super appreciate it. I meant to turn those off while we're doing the news, but super appreciate the follow. Thanks for joining us on the news. I hope that you appreciate it. Cloudflare's startup program has been revamped. So if you're doing a startup and want to apply for it, it's been revamped with up to 250 credits for you to start your startup on their platform. This is in line with Google. GCP, if you're an AI startup, will give you 250,000 in cloud credits. So yeah, if you're starting a startup or thinking about it, it's worth checking out these types of programs because you might be able to save, the first couple years of operating. Actually, you could save a lot of years, although some of these come with a time cap. Like I believe Azure's was 2 years that you got the credits. So you kind of used them or lose them, which made me think that they wanted you to expand how much you use. And then when that expansion stopped, you'd start just paying for it because that's what you were. Anyways, I don't know if they're that devious. I don't know. Anyways, let's move to GCP. GCP announced the public preview of Vertex AI Prompt Optimizer. Basically, it's a tool that helps you optimize your prompting for Vertex AI. I've always said that this was a failure of AI if I have to be a prompt engineer, because at that point, you're just creating another programming language with its esoteric things that I have to remember. And this now reminds me of a code optimizer where you need to run something to optimize your prompt for the thing. Oh my goodness. What is the world we've grown up in and helped create? Maybe more exciting, AlloyDB federated queries. So basically, if you're leveraging AlloyDB for Postgres and you're using BigQuery as well, you can actually now query your data in AlloyDB using BigQuery. And you don't have to, I believe the method before this was to actually dump that into Bigtable and then use BigQuery. So basically you'd have a lift and shift or some sort of export tool, and then you could use a BigQuery. So you could do basically like a nightly where you would dump your data into Bigtable and then use BigQuery for your analytics and stuff like that. Now it's better. Just use the federated queries. You don't have to transport data all over the place, pay for those fees and whatnot. So that's actually pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Just to be clear, there is nothing from AWS. AWS said, screw you guys. We're focusing on returning to the office. We have nothing to release because all of our employees are effectively on strike. As far as Azure update goes, I brought you guys to this page. This is where I source a lot of my, this is my secret sauce where I source a lot of my updates. But what I wanted to say is there's actually, if you're on Azure, there's a lot of retirement of things. I wasn't going to go through all of them, but there is a lot of retirement of things. So if you're using things on Azure, you might want to check out the retirement page. The Open Service Mesh on add-on for AKS will be retired starting 2027. So you want to make sure plans for that. That was probably the biggest one that I saw. These other ones were like, yeah. Anyways, Microsoft Translator, probably no one used that. So anyways, be wary of that. Moving forward, the public preview of virtual machine node pools support in AKS. This is super big. This is something that GCP and AWS has had on the AKS team for years, literal years. And finally, Azure has come out with it, letting you manage machine node pools, which is actually like super, 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 super useful. Super useful. If you guys would like a little talk on why node pools in the cloud with Kubernetes can be like super powerful, let me know and I can do that. They're just super, just take my word for it. Just take my word for it. General availability is a long-term support for version 1.27 and 1.30 in Azure Kubernetes Service. So they have this long-term support for different specific versions, and they have now supporting 127 and 130 in their long-term support. So if you're wanting a version that doesn't change as often and wanting to stay on one for a little while and building something right now, you might want to pick up 1.30 and just coast on that for a little bit of time. Yeah, 130 for the win. 100%. 127, I think, is there for people already on 127 and that don't want to move. If you're starting out, pick the latest version. There's a lot of reasons to, especially in Kubernetes. The later the version, usually the easier it is to upgrade. They have done a lot of work. It used to be very hard to upgrade Kubernetes, and they keep making it better. Not only that, you hit more stable versions of things. So one thing that people don't think about when updating Kubernetes is that it's really important to know, like, Istio has manifest files too. And this is what people don't think about. Let's say you upgrade from 129 to 130, but Istio requires the beta version of a thing that was upgraded to GA, the version of the manifest file in 130. Well, Istio won't work because it's writing or using the beta version. And so, like, there's a lot of these compatibilities that can be difficult. But the later the version, the more of those things that have stable APIs that they're hitting anyways, and not the newest things. So it makes it actually easier to upgrade, and you have fewer difficulties. Oh, 127 was meant to be out of support in August, so I didn't know that. I don't know when Azure deprecates things. I bet you there's a big customer on this. That would be my guess. My guess is that there's a very large customer on 127 that says, no, we want 127. That would be my guess. Okay, the big customer is Azure. Azure runs on 127. And they just realized they couldn't update yet. So Azure was like, no, guys, we're not we're not taking this one down yet. Land of the Leet, you did miss the end of the WordPress party. I'm sorry. Did you guys like how I did that? I tried to make it a little bit of fun. I tried to give an actual timeline of it. Let me know what you guys think. I'm trying to spice it up. Make the streams a little bit more fun. Fun to join into. I know sometimes the coding can be a drag. I'm going to try to avoid that, but sometimes coding can be a drag. Especially when you use the AIs as much as I do. What is this? What is this? Are you about to hack my machine? Okay. I did not know this thing existed. It's a Perl printer. Thanks for joining, Russell. Okay, this is cool. It doesn't have the null cloud on here. It's kind of incomplete. Incomplete. This is actually really cool. Thanks for sharing that. I want to start. I'm going to start. I think maybe I'll do it a repo, but I'll put it on the null cloud website when it gets back up. I want to start a site of useful links for software engineers with stuff like this. Just as a resource for people to go to. All right. We have a few last things. I left artifact. I can't speak. I left artificial intelligence to the end. Actually, not the very end. There's something I'm very excited about at the very end. And we're going to talk about it. But we're going to talk about a little bit about artificial intelligence. There's a couple interesting things that happened. There was the Register released a very interesting statement that I'd like to read with you guys. IBM's plan to replace thousands of roles with AI presently looks more like outsourcing jobs to India at the expense of organizational competency. That view of Big Blue was offered to the Register after our report on the IT giant's latest layoffs, which resonated so strongly with several IBM employees that they contacted the Register with thoughts on the job cups. Sorry, we were talking about cups too long. My vocal cords were just ready to say cups. Okay? Cuts. Our sources have asked not to be identified to protect their ongoing relationships with Big Blue. Suffice to say, they were or are employed as senior technologists in business units that span multiple locations and were privy to company communications. These were not views from a narrow entrance to a single cubicle. So basically, this goes on to basically say that IBM tried to replace people with AI, couldn't do it. Productivity fell, and quality fell. And they started hiring in India to basically cover for the gap. That's basically what this goes on. I'm going to drop this. Now, like I said, I could not validate it any further than this. There is nobody that was willing to come on the show with a modulated voice. If somebody's out there, I will super modulate your voice and have a show with you. Happy to do it. So I couldn't validate any of this myself. This is just, the Register was the only person that even was reporting on it. And it seems to be their sources. So take it for what it is. But yeah, basically, they couldn't replace the jobs with AI to the extent that they wanted. All right, moving on. Moving on from that. I believe OpenAI released the MMMLU. I think they should have gone M3LU, but whatever. That's just me. Is a widely recognized benchmark for general knowledge attained by AI. It has covered a broad range of topics from 57 different categories. We translated the MMLU's test to 14 languages using professional human translators, relying on human translator for the blah, blah, blah. Basically, they took the MMLU and changed it into the MMMLU because now it's multilingual. So this is a huge data set. If you're looking at dating, if you're looking at dating and want a good data set on the right date for you, OpenAI is there for you. But if you're looking to train a data model and looking for a very large data set that is in languages, this has been dropped for you. So they have a bunch of different languages from Arabic down to Indonesian and all the way down to simply, and I say down, I was just going from the top to the bottom. So anyways, there you go. It's out there. This is nice. I'm glad that they're doing this. There's the whole issue, like the CTO, if you guys didn't know, of OpenAI left, is like one of the final big people leaving. Sam Altman has pretty much ousted everybody that was left so that he can take it public as a for-profit company. If you guys didn't hear, I didn't cover that because it's kind of boring news at this point. To me, Sam Altman being super greedy and outing everybody and not caring is like so 2021. So I'm probably not going to cover it unless there's something really spicy. Like if he gets in a Twitter battle like the WordPress people did, I'll cover that because that will be fun. It would have been cooler if he fired everyone to make it open source. Land of the Elite. 100%. Thank you. That would have been so much cooler. Anyways. Meta released Llama 3.2 and gives it a voice. It is also now able to process images. It's also able to process images to a certain extent. I don't know how well, but it's out there, so you can hand it an image and ask it information about the image, supposedly. Meet math prompt, a new threat. I don't know why this wasn't in security. It should have been in security. I'm into Yeah. Anyways. Basically, this was just another prompt injection where you use algebraic equations to make malicious requests. So a lot of the times people have hidden malicious requests in a lot of different ways, and they keep finding different ways to hide malicious requests. And the last one is math. Math. It's always the answer, right? If you want to ask a malicious question, just use math. That's the end of the story. Oh, the Arc browser exploit. You know, there's a big reason I didn't report on the Arc browser. There is no Linux support. It cannot be a good browser. Yeah, Arc browser did it. We'll pull that up. Let's talk about this one. This, I think, is written by people that don't understand. I think that this is the biggest scam. Scam isn't the right word. I don't know the right word. I'm running short on time, so I'm going to be quick. Prompt engineering is not a valuable skill. Okay? Prompt engineering is a turd of a skill. If you make an AI that requires me to know a special language, you have invented a soft language. That's all you've done. Rust is already a special language that I can make the computers do whatever I want with. If you're saying that your AIs are so dented that you have to have a special way of talking to them, they're not super useful now, are they? See, I have a bunch of engineers that I can go talk to today that I can use plain English. And guess what? We all speak that English slightly differently. Yeah, prompt engineering should be I'm okay with it being a soft skill. I'm okay with it being a soft skill. It could be a soft skill because, you know, teamwork is like that. It's a soft skill where there's ways to talk to people and then there's ways not to talk to people. For example, there's ways not to talk to people and to show how mature you are. And then there's ways of handling this maturely. I can't show you that because that would be in private. And so it's fine as a soft skill. But it shouldn't be like a mandatory requirement that is one of the most valuable skills. I mean, maybe teamwork is. I think we've just missed the boat if not anybody can use it. You know, the whole idea is that the AI or the machine learning thing will do it. I hate the word AI, by the way. Can we all agree that AI is a terrible artificial intelligence? Do we say that when a human goes swimming, do we say that's artificial swimming because we weren't born naturally to float? Or do we call boats artificial floating or planes artificial flying? Or do we call computers artificial computation because a human didn't do it? Like, I think it's the dumbest word ever, other than sorting algorithms, which are also super stupid, and distroless container. I have a long list. I need to write these down. AI is on that list. AI is on that list. I'm a senior teamwork engineer. Isn't that what a director is? Like, isn't a director like a senior teamwork engineer? A manager is a teamwork engineer. And then a director is like a senior teamwork engineer. I'm so putting that on my resume. I am a senior teamwork engineer. Thank you very much. Please call me senior teamwork. Anyways. I don't know. Like, I still think that it's not even a technical. I don't think prompt engineering is technical either. I'm not sure. I just feel like we've missed the boat if we have to learn a special language. I guess that's my thing. Is like, if there's a learning curve to using an AI and actually getting it to do what you want it to do, then is it that smart? Well, and the answer is it's not smart at all. It's just statistical analysis, and we have to get over that. And which means with being pure statistical analysis, you can actually think of the statistics of what it would ask and what it would. And actually, we proved this in a stream earlier this week when I said, why is this test not working? And every single AI told me the test wasn't working because it failed what it was named. It said that it didn't encode spaces correctly, which is wrong. It did encode spaces correctly, but the fact of the matter was that the test said it was testing spaces. And so I could tell you from just the little I know about statistics, that's what it was going to say. Period. All right. Let's move on though. Let's move on. Last thing. You guys have heard me talk about Legion. I think Legion is going to be pretty cool. You've also heard some of my complaints about Kubernetes, and I think Kubernetes is great. I don't just hate on it, but it definitely has, it was designed by Google for Google. Well, Legion has new competition. I found this article, which is a pretty good article. Lessons learned from turning an open source project into a viable business. I was like, oh, that's a cool article. I'm going to read it. And then I was like, wait, what is Kestra? An open source orchestrator? What? That's my responsibility. That's what I was going to do. Nobody would give me funding for it, though. So I want to know how they got funding for it, because they got funding for it. And I was told, is it specific? The question I was asked by Y Combinator was, does it specifically empower AI systems? And I said, it empowers all systems. And they were like, no, thank you. My bad. But orchestrate smarter, not harder. Automate smarter, not harder. Schedule smarter, not harder. I have sent these people a request to do a Saturday stream with them. This looks really cool. I have not used it. It looks cool. So we'll see if we get a Saturday stream with one of these people. Because it would be cool. I would enjoy it. I thought Kestra was a workflow system. So it has some amount of orchestration. Like, I don't understand. Like, it has tasks that can run based off of the but it supposedly orchestrates stuff now. So I don't know the full extent. I don't know if it's using orchestrate the same way I use the word orchestrate. I don't know. Let me be clear. I myself just learned about this project. I do not know any inside knowledge about it. I haven't used it. They talk about orchestrating workflows and tasks and things that and stuff that runs. So if it's not, it's getting close. It talks about running containers. Now, I don't know the exact extent of how they run containers or jobs in GCP or whatnot. So like I said, there is investigations, but I have reached out to them. I've emailed them. So if they'd like to do a Saturday stream and just set up a workflow, set up a namespace, some blueprints. I was reading about the blueprints, not entirely sure about what the blueprints do. The workflows were easy, and the tasks seemed like code that I could just run. But here's your review of it. Let's hear it. Is just empty space your review? I thought you had like a link to a write-up of something that you did. Beautiful UI, integrated VS Code, marketplace of examples, revisions, and side-by-side diffs. Its UI is 10 out of 10. It is, however, written in Java and seems more independent task-driven. Okay, at its core system, there's seems to be Docker in Docker, so I assume every stage is a Docker container. Whereas execute process in different tools. I use Python, DuckDB imports, and queries, Slack, etc. Oh, okay. Java is the twist. I actually think that people should just stop using Java. And the reason is Oracle. Oracle is the reason you should stop using Java, not the language. Not a thing against the language. Oracle is so nasty. So nasty. I would not touch it with a 10-foot pole. If they will send you a bill if one of your developers goes onto their websites and downloads something that they can download for free. Because that developer has Java on their machine. Whatever. Anyways, I don't know. So Russell, that seems, so they've added stuff that are tasks, but independent task driven, like that was one of the things that like, I didn't know from what I've read so far, whether a task was what they called like a container, like a workload, but maybe it's more of like, it almost feels like from what you're saying, more of an if that, then this type of system. That's maybe a little bit more configurable, which would be interesting. I'd still love to learn from it. If they'd like to come on, I'd still, if it's not a Legion competitor, I mean, my goodness, that's good for me. They need to let go of the JavaScript trademark too. I agree. 100%. I agree. The only thing that they do with the JavaScript trademark is troll people with it. And it annoys me. It annoys me. But I'm good with not using JavaScript as well. Let's just ban JavaScript. Let's stop using it as developers. Let's go. Let's go. This sounds amazing. Removing Oracle from our lives sounds amazing. Oh my goodness. I need to make a video on this. De-Oracle your life. Oh. Okay. Well, I need to get back to work. That's my lunch break. I hope you guys enjoyed the news. Let me know if you're liking the little bit of different style here. I'm trying to make it easier for people to get into, a little bit more fun instead of just the shotgun approach. I didn't cover every little detail that happened. Do you guys like it when I cover every little thing and it's just kind of like reading off the things, or would you like me to do what I did and dive into them a little bit more, into the controversies, into what happened, into the timelines and understanding those things? It takes a little bit more of my time, but yeah. Anyways, I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. I hope to see you Saturday tomorrow, as I'll stream some then too. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.